Welcome, everyone, to our webinar on resolving conflict in collective consciousness, the pandemic. There are a lot of things on our minds these days, and certainly the pandemic is one of the biggest ones. No matter whether we believe it's real or we believe it's not, whether we think that we're being told fairly or unfairly to shelter in place, to wear masks, and to shut down our businesses, a great deal of conflict has been created. And I hardly need to go into any detail about the nature of that conflict. What we want to deal with tonight is the notion of collective consciousness, the group effect, the effect of lots of people being in conflict, in turmoil about an issue, in this case, the coronavirus. And what we want to look at is how we create that collective consciousness and how we can resolve it. And I'm really actually quite excited about this topic. And next month, we're going to do one on politics because the elections will be coming right up. People actually probably will have already started voting by either voting early or voting by absentee ballot. But this month, we're going to focus on the pandemic and the things that surround the pandemic. Collective consciousness is an energetic field created by many people having thoughts, particularly intense thoughts, which we might call worries, concerns, anger, fear, resentment, sadness. A lot of people feeling very depressed now. All those different feelings create a collective effect. Modern science doesn't comprehend the notion of collective consciousness particularly well, but those of us that work in the energy field realize that this is a very significant factor. And whatever the issue may be, when people have strongly held feelings, and often there are others who have strongly held feelings in the opposite direction, whenever that happens, it creates a tension, just as a tension is created in our own body when we feel conflicted about any particular issue or are just upset about an issue, even if we have settled in our own mind what our viewpoint is, but realize that that's in conflict with others in the world. And so feeling that tension within us and feeling the tension outside of us, most of us can't really make that distinction. And it's not easily done. So what we'd like to do tonight is to see if we can create some space between ourselves and our environment and get a little better sense of how collective consciousness, how that energy field around us that we are enmeshed in, how that field is affecting us, what it's doing to us, how it's making us edgy, perhaps, anxious, upset, easily shaken, and otherwise having a difficult time in life. It's not the only effect that there can be upon us, but it's a very, very big effect. And it's a very strong effect right now. So those of us in energy work are particularly concerned. And I know a number of other energy workers have actually tried to address that in their own webinars. And they each does it in their own way. And the way I've approached this is very much the way I approach it when I'm working with just an individual and the problems of conflict that exist within them. And that is to turn towards those feelings rather than try to avoid them. Open ourselves to those feelings. We're going to actually do this exercise in a little while. Turn towards those feelings, open ourselves to them, welcome them, and get a sense of what it is they are about. What is going on that is producing those feelings? And developing some empathy with the existence of those feelings so that we're able to be a witness to what's going on and allow that energy to just dissipate by holding it in our attention rather than trying to suppress it, analyze it, criticize it, or any other way get rid of it. And any of you who have any familiarity with the field of counseling and psychology, you recognize that a lot, this is what counselors and psychologists, psychiatrists do with people a great deal of the time, is help them get in touch. The approach that I like to use is actually a very simple one, and it's mainly the way we ask questions, the way we look at what is going on inside us, what is going on outside of us, that we're able to create a space that allows us to be a witness to the process or to the experience instead of identifying with that experience. Many of you on the webinar have heard me explain before that this is very much like the way we teach people when they're meditating, when they're learning to practice, particularly transcendental meditation, that we point out, I experience something. And the something could be any kind of experience that we're having, a feeling that we're having, a physical sensation, uh, something is just going on, something we're doing. We can say, I think something. It could be anything, any thought that we're having. So a happy thought, an unhappy thought, doesn't matter. I think something. Or you could say, I am, and then fill it in with some experience. I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm uncomfortable, I'm nervous, whatever. You can fill it in with a feeling or sense, perception, whatever you like. The question is, well, pardon me, we all know what the experiences are when we name them like that. I experience something. That's the easy part. The question is, who's the I? Who is the experiencer? Who is the one that is witnessing? That's elusive until through our practices or through some other approach, we begin to make that distinction between the experiencer, the process of experiencing, and the experience itself. So there's three aspects to that: the experiencer, the process of experiencing, what's going on, what the mechanism is by which we experience, and then the experience itself. Now, in this equation that we're describing, the object of experience, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, whatever we're doing, whatever the activity is, whatever the action is around us, that turns out not to be the really interesting stuff. We get involved in it, of course, and we think it's pretty interesting. But that's not really the interesting stuff. The really interesting thing is who's doing the perceiving, who's having the experience. And so there are various approaches, and all of you who have learned to meditate have, to some degree at least, I'm sure, gained some experience of who the experiencer is, separate from the experience, to be able to be settled in your own self. And that initial experience is a very localized self. It's the one who's behind the eyeballs and between the ears. We understand that at first. But then that experience grows with continued practice. That experience grows so that we are everywhere. We are all things. Nothing is actually separate from us. Space and time on one level, that subtle level, cease to exist. And so that we call the non-localized self. In the Vedic language, it's Atma, which means the self, but it's always written with a capital S to mean that self which is omnipresent beyond space and time. Imperishable is another word that's often used for that, that does not change, and is a witness to all of the experience, even the experience of the individualized, some people would say the ego, but it's the most refined value of ego that knows all of the experience. We say refined value, by which we mean it's no longer identified with the object of experience. It stands separate from that. And so when we look at collective consciousness, we're looking at fluctuations in a field where we are the field. And then the fluctuations, they're like waves on the ocean surface. We're like the ocean, and then the waves on the ocean, they have particular qualities, size, strength, whether they got, whether they're flipping over and making a curl and creating foam and all of those things. Those are all qualities of the waves. And so when we're the ocean, when we're not the ocean, let me say it this way, it's like we're above the ocean looking and we see waves, like when we're standing in it. If we dive into the ocean and look up, we can still see the waves, but we see them as the ocean moving. Oh, they're just shapes of the ocean. But our sense is it's all just ocean. And so that's the experience of witnessing from the level of the self, and being able then to look at the waves and just be with them in a very non-judgmental way. Some people like to use the word unconditional love. They just appreciate the wave as it is, without a judgment. It's good, it's bad, it's nice, it's not nice, it's pleasant, it's unpleasant. It's just there. And so when we look at our experience, particularly when we look at it in the terms of a collective consciousness, the fluctuations in the whole field, then we can again just look at that and see that they are there. And we can allow the energy of them to just transform itself, to dissipate is often the way it feels. It feels like instead of the energy being all bundled up in a wave or in a point or in some space or some part of us, it dissipates. It's no longer tied up in a particular place. And then that energy becomes available to us. We can utilize that energy to be creative, to find solutions to things, to engage in activity, to be enthusiastic. And because we're established, or more established anyway, in that state of our own self, then we feel happy. We feel good. We feel, the word is often used, ananda, bliss. We feel bliss. And when we see it expressed in something, an art form, or just an event, something going on, it's just blissful. Blissful is bliss in motion, bliss in action, bliss in something that's happening. And so when we're able to be a witness to experience, then it's just blissful. So we can engage in whatever, doing the dishes. Not exactly for most people a lot of fun, but something that just happens. And then when we're done, we go, oh, look, I got through that and it looks great. My kitchen is all cleaned up. Cleaning the house, washing the car, whatever it is, going grocery shopping. My grocery shopping is really fun these days because I get to take my baby granddaughter. She's just about a year old, and she loves going out in public and seeing people and seeing all the stuff in the stores. She thinks that's just great. So my grocery shopping is actually really fun. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, is just experiencing the bliss that underlies, that is part and parcel of the observer, not the observed, the observer. The observed is just there. It's just the field fluctuating. But what we are is bliss. What we are is happiness. When we can function from that level, life is very easy. It seems to happen quite automatically. Now, there can be other factors, right? Things happening in our lives that may be creating some ripples in our life. And of course, there's always the karmic factors, the sometimes called planetary influences. I don't know where my planets are today, but setting up this webinar was a real challenge. I'm delighted. I think everything is actually working. Nobody is sending me any chat messages saying I can't hear you or see you, so I think we're good. But the way this has gone really surprised me because I've done this many, many times and I'm pretty used to doing it. And somehow all kinds of things went wrong. And it was clearly just that. In fact, one of the things that went wrong just before we started here tonight, my Wi-Fi, my cell phone wouldn't connect to my Wi-Fi. It like couldn't recognize it, wouldn't accept the passcode. They asked me to re-enter it, and I did, and it didn't accept it. And I went, like, what is going on? This is the kind of technological glitch that has come up. Others have been more serious this past week. Just a few days ago, I got rear-ended for the first time in my life. I was involved in a motor vehicle accident. And I can't honestly say I really wanted that experience, or found it pleasant. I actually was quite shaken by that. So I kind of lost that quality of bliss for a while. And I mean, not just a couple of minutes, it was quite a long time. And even still, I still feel a little rattled every once in a while. I kind of get that sensation. And meditation overcomes that. I'm just giving this as examples of things that can happen that bring us out of our ability to just innocently be a witness of our experience. But through meditation and then through some techniques, we're able to settle back into ourself, back into that transcendental value of the self, the witnessing value of the self, and then just experiencing life and enjoying it. It's very, very sweet and beautiful. So that's the basis of that. How do we settle into that? I'm going to lead us through an exercise in just a couple of minutes, but fundamentally the idea is that we stop, we pause, press pause, press pause, and allow ourselves, sometimes it helps take a couple of slow, deep breaths can help, checking in with how we're feeling, where we're seated. It's usually best to do this sitting down so that we don't fall over, because we're going to settle down inside and, just be seated. How do we feel in the seat? Are we comfortable? Do we feel like, oh, I should adjust my back a little bit like that, and whatever we need to do, roll our shoulders or something, just to feel a little bit more settled and comfortable. Close the eyes because we're so outwardly directed when we have our eyes open, because we're watching what's going on around us. So just closing the eyes and settling inside, taking a couple of slow, deep breaths. And then just noticing, we'll go through the exercise in a minute, and then just noticing what's there, what comes up. And then as you'll see in the exercise, there's some words we can use, some questions and phrases that help to facilitate our getting deeper and deeper into the experience as we witness that experience. That is, we use language to create a space between the observer and what is observed. And when we do that, it's just amazing how the energy of whatever is there, whatever conflict is there, whatever anguish is there, whatever disturbance is there, just has a chance to dissipate. Now, when I do my work with people, oftentimes we have to find, things that are not only outside influences, but familial patterns, things we've inherited, things we've brought into this life from past lives. Doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. That's not even important. It's valuable to me anyway as I'm working, but it's not necessary to believe those things. But if you do, it can be quite revealing about why life is the way it is, why you have these habitual patterns of reacting to things. So we look at that reactivity and we look at the source of the reactivity, and we can clean that up. Many times it's the end of a karma that perhaps has existed over many lifetimes. and in terms of the family, often handed down through many generations. It puts us in a position of being at the end of a karma and the end of a familial pattern of behavior, and that all kinds of patterns of behavior, abusive patterns and self-destructive patterns, and patterns of mental illness and other things that run in families, and even not disease in any sense of the word, but just disturbances that may be in families, ways of dealing with things. Um, so it gives us an opportunity to free ourselves from those kinds of things. Tonight, our goal is to create some space and hopefully loosen up the energy and the influence of the collective consciousness around the coronavirus pandemic. So I think that's enough on that. I'd like to pause here and just see if there are any questions. You can use the chat function um, at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. I'm not sure where that shows up if you're on a cell phone. But if you use the chat function, you can send me a message, and I'll be glad to try to answer your question. And I'm just reading the chats here, and have a little discussion about any points you want to raise. So this is your opportunity. Sometimes I try to let people speak, but sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. And the way technology has been going tonight, I think I actually am not going to try to do that. So if you just care to put anything in the chat, I'd be happy to take a question or to respond to a comment. And if not, we're just going to go right on ahead into our, I call it a group clearing session. Actually copyrighted that term. And it's very appropriate tonight, right, to have a group clearing session. In a group clearing session, I usually do it individual by individual all at once. That is, I don't name anybody. I'm in there with the group and I just look at whatever's going on with the various individuals in the group. Tonight, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to do a collective thing, and I'm going to kind of guide the meditation. So I'm going to invite everyone to sit comfortably. Very important to be comfortable. And you may close your eyes. That's very helpful. Check how you're seated. Feel the body on the seat of the chair or bench or whatever you're sitting on, the floor. I think that's working good, yeah. And it's nice to take a couple of very slow, deep breaths. We don't do this sort of thing in a hurry. We just want to be easy, patient with ourselves and with our process. If you're feeling impatient or restless, that's something we can deal with in just a minute. Well, that restlessness and impatience seems to be lively, so let's start there. Try a phrase, saying it to yourself. Try saying, I'm sensing, it's good to start with that. I'm sensing something inside me that feels restless and impatient. And just let yourself say hello to that. And let it know that you're curious about that restless and impatient feeling. And you're not trying to make it go away, just welcoming it. And as you welcome it, as you begin to look at that feeling, that impatient, restless feeling, just for a moment here, notice that you're looking at or hearing or just feeling or tasting or smelling. You're just sensing, you are sensing something. Notice the you is sensing just for a moment and feel the you is not part of the experience. It's bigger than the experience. And if you allow it, maybe it doesn't really have an outer boundary. It's just big. It's just big. It just extends out. Very good. So let's come back to that feeling, that restless, impatient feeling. We're just noticing it, listening to it. We could ask it if there's anything it wants us to know. And I am sensing that that question, that curiosity is coming from our largest self, non-localized self, the witnessing self, the non-changing self is observing this feeling with curiosity. What is it about? Let's see what comes of this. What comes of this? So different feelings are coming up in the group. Some are angry, some are anxious, some are sad, some are all of that, all of those things. So again, we can say to our experience, I am sensing something inside me that is whichever one comes to you. And I'm also sensing whatever else. And I'm present with all of these experiences, all of these feelings. And I'm okay with that. You might notice that already there is some sense of ease that is coming with that. I'm sensing that these feelings rising in the collective and in myself about the COVID and everything else. Even the I'm just plain tired of it all feeling. Yeah, that one's pretty strong, isn't it? Even that, I'm just, it's just there. And I can feel that many of you are shifting or feeling the shift in that energy. It's just not as intense. Maybe it came in at a 7 or an 8 or a 9, and now it's much, much less. Just because we're paying attention to it. Now, another thing that we can do when we're settled in ourself in this way, when we're just witnessing, and again, if there's any sense that you're doing the I am angry or I am frustrated or I am sad or I am just so tired of this, just repeat that phrase again. Something, I'm sensing something inside me that is feeling whatever these things are. You can say this and this and this and this. And I'm here with all of that, and it's okay. Whenever we find ourselves saying, I am, then we can switch to that language which helps us separate, helps us differentiate between ourself and our experience. I'm sensing something inside me that feels. Now, on the basis of our witnessing our experience, we seem to be doing pretty well with that. On the basis of our witnessing our experience, we just put our attention out into the collective consciousness, the field all around us that we are embedded in and not separate from. And just feel whatever we've been feeling, feel it out there in the field. Maybe even some specific instances will come to mind where, oh, this person or that group said something and some other group said the opposite. And there were perhaps, some name calling or whatever going on, or impugning people's character. A lot of accusing and blaming and complaining, judging and indicting. We use the same process, just being with that experience out there. Oh, those groups are fighting. It's the same as if something inside me were fighting over So much fear out there. Yeah, see how easy it is to feel that? It's not just your fear, it's the fear of the field, the fear in the field. So many people being fearful, so many people spreading fear, caught up in it instead of being a witness to it. Something in my field is feeling fearful. I'm sensing something in my field that's feeling angry. Ooh, I think somebody came up with something in my field is feeling like it just wants to be violent. I'm not going to say what I saw. Hmm? And I'm here with that with curiosity. Now we begin that process of allowing the energy of the field, instead of having it all wrapped up in these intense feelings, just allow that energy to just dissipate so that the field can be lively and full of creativity, and our experience can just be bliss. So when you're feeling triggered, you can say that phrase, I'm sensing something inside me that's feeling. Well, I got both fear and revolt, revolution, disgust kind of feeling, pulling back from it. It's ugly. Let me just say, and I'm here with that, even though it's distasteful. I don't want, something inside me doesn't want to experience that. And we can deal with that part too. I'm sensing something inside me that's disgusted with what's going on, and something else that doesn't want me to feel that. That can apply to any of the feelings. That part is almost always there. That part that just doesn't want us to feel. If you're in a counseling session, the counselor may at that point, if you're having that conversation out loud, they'll say, oh, something's blocking you. So here what we do is, oh, I'm sensing something inside me that is keeping me or doesn't want me to feel something. And I'm saying hello to that. And I'm curious about that. It sometimes helps to say to those parts, well, of course you feel like that, because you've got all of this and this and this and this to be upset about. So of course you feel like that. And I'm just going to stay here with you. So what I'm getting now is the part that doesn't want to feel is saying, kind of making a truce. Okay, if you're going to just be a witness and not get overshadowed, then I'll go along with letting you feel those feelings that I don't want you to feel. I'm just here to protect you. And we can just say thank you to that. And while we're saying thank you, we can give appreciation to all these parts for showing up all through the field, wherever they are. Now let's test and see how we're really doing here. Just think about something in the news that kind of pressed your button, and see if maybe just looking at that, oh, it's just something happened, somebody said something, somebody did something, whatever it was. And you just say, yeah, they did that. Of course they did that. That was their role in this whole grand drama, and I'm just a witness to all of that. Something in my field, someone in my field, just having such a difficult time. When that begins to dissipate, you can put your attention on another thing that happened in the field today or in the last week or whatever. Or maybe something that's been riding out there in the field for a long time. Whatever it is, so I find coming up in the group now something, not everybody, but some people may be experiencing that there's a very strong feeling that being deceived, and that there's that collective sense in the field, being deceived. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. So you can say something inside my field and in me feels deceived, or that people or groups are trying to deceive me. Just allow yourself to feel that discomfort. Something inside me feels very uncomfortable about being deceived. Could be a component of betrayal of trust. That element could be there too. And I'm present with that. I'm present with the deception. And I'm present with the bad feeling that comes of knowing I'm being deceived, or feeling that I'm being deceived, believing I'm being deceived. We just let that be. It's just there. We say hello to that. We accept it. we let it know we're curious about it. Acknowledging elements of being hurt, of being resentful, being frightened, even terrorized. This may resonate with old experiences, patterns that we've had, trauma. Again, that phrase, of course you feel that way. It's very helpful. From that value of our witnessing, of course you feel that way, to that part that, or parts that feel all of that. And you might notice that as you're witnessing this, you're able to experience or see the intensity of it without being overshadowed by it. You're just witnessing it. It's there, and you know it's in the past, maybe it's been very overshadowing, but right now it's just there. You can say it's okay. It's okay for it to be there. We're not trying to get rid of it. We don't have to. We just let the energy of it dissipate on its own without trying to do anything. So I'm sensing now that already there's been quite a shift within each of us and in the field. Field is now more peaceful. Feels to me more like a cloud. Can't really feel it, and yet it's there. It's there, but it's just vapor. So let's make one more check, see if there's anything else that wants attention tonight. Anything else that wants attention from us. We can even ask, is there something else inside me that wants my attention? And I sense something raging like a caged animal. See if those words don't resonate to some degree. It doesn't look like any animal I know. I would call it a demon. It's like there's a demon in my field, a demon in my life. And it's raging. Something inside me is caging up that demon to try to protect all of us. Now, in my awareness, the demon isn't actually evil, which I find very curious. So I'm going to ask it about that. What is the nature of this raging beast? If it isn't evil, what is it that it's so angry? Well, what I'm getting is that it's the part of me and the part of society that doesn't want to be oppressed, does not want to be caged, does not want to be thwarted, particularly does not want to be disrespected. It wants to be free to be, to express, to live, to breathe, to create, to enjoy the flow of its own being. And I'm sensing that now as cosmic will, creative intelligence. You could call it divine intention. Probably each of you has your own name for it. And as I'm watching it here, it's expanding, but then it again, there's something containing it, something blocking it. You might express gratitude to that part for showing up. Seems a lot less angry now, a lot less rage. It's settled down. It has some hope. It has some hope, some feeling that, yes, it can breathe, it can be creative, it can live. And I'm getting this sense that it has to come back to its own nature again and again, which means our attention needs to come to this aspect of ourself again and again, this aspect of the creative being of all peoples, whether they be identifiable groups or literally everyone and the whole planet itself, to bring forth life in love. You may even get a sense of the divinity of it all. By which I mean the creator infused into every aspect, every point of being of the manifest universe. It's just permeated. And in that, there is no rage, and there is no obstacle, and there is no sadness. There is just the enormity of being one with the universe, one with the intelligence that guides and creates the universe. So as I look over the field now, I sense that we've done well. The ocean is much calmer. The energy is readily available. The intelligence that guides us is directly accessible. I think we've done well. You might take a minute or two to return to the manifest level of creation. And when you do, if you have any feeling, any question you want to ask or comment you want to make, I appreciate it if you put that in the chat. Hmm. I often explain to the group that while I plan what I'm going to present, I don't plan the group clearing session. I only have usually some sense of where I'm going to start with it, and then it just goes it on its own. So there was a comment. It says, it was sent just to me on the, when you go to do a chat comment, it says all panelists, but if you click on it, you have the option of sending it to all panelists and attendees, and then everybody can see it. You can do it either way. If you want to keep it private, then I'll just read it without saying who sent it. But it says, I feel wonderfully relaxed in two areas that came up: the collective political stress, that's the topic for next month, and a long-standing personal attachment. So that's a very, very good thing, pair of things. And it's very interesting how when we're working in this way, we experience both the individual stuff and the collective stuff. Because it's a pretty safe bet that whatever we're feeling is also out in the collective consciousness. And so we can clear both, particularly when we approach it the way we did here. Any other comments? Anybody else want to put anything in the chat? Is anybody awake? Some people feel very relaxed when we do these, and more than one person has drifted off into sleep. At least this way, when you're doing it and you're at home, and then if you fall asleep, I don't have to, wake you up and try to get you to leave. Here's a comment that said that the hermit lifestyle is compatible with the COVID situation with sheltering at home, which is certainly true. And many of us were living kind of as hermits even before COVID came. And they said the portion about the demon really resonated. Yeah, it resonated with me certainly, and I was kind of surprised. But I was surprised when I got the sense of demon that it didn't seem like it was evil. It just had that quality of rage. So that was an interesting thing that happened. And we may all have our demons, and hopefully all of them are actually benign, not really evil. I do occasionally run into an evil one, not very often. Typically, they're just very, very unhappy. Anybody else want to say anything, or we'll draw this to a conclusion? Certainly enjoyed working with you all tonight, and I hope in the days to come that you find that you're easier and that you're more of a witness to the experience and able to bring that settled state of being into activity, and thus be effective in dealing with the situations that are at hand. Having to mask when you go out, not being able to go perhaps to your favorite restaurant, or certainly perhaps not being able to sit down at least in your favorite restaurant. And, your social gathering points may be closed, and, your opportunities to just socialize may be quite limited. And now maybe you'll find that it's a little easier to just accept that and deal with it. And, be comfortable with what's going on, not because you like it or because you find it good, but because you find it is. And you can just be with that in a witnessing capacity. Okay, if no one else, then we'll draw this to conclusion. Again, it'll be on the 13th of the month. It's a Tuesday. It'll be the actual second Tuesday. This Tuesday is actually the third, but I count it as the second because the first one was the first, and that doesn't count. And so it'll be on the 13th of next month, and we'll be doing the collective consciousness of the political landscape. Very good. Look forward to all of you. Oh, one other thing, and that is that everybody who attends is entitled to a $25 discount on a 3-session program to deal with whatever demons are there for you. So just feel free to get in touch. I'll be sending out an email in the next few days, I hope. Try not to put that off, but life has been very busy and technology has been really challenging. So we'll do the best we can. Okay, looking forward to seeing you all next month. Bye for now.